Morning Ireland at 7:52. Let's get the business news from Adam Maguire.
Thanks, Rachel. Rent prices could rise by more than 24% in the next 2 years due to a sharp rise in the number of people renting, according to a new survey by estate agent Savills. The report into the country's private rental sector found that the supply of rental properties had actually increased in the past 5 years, but it failed to match the surge in demand from the increased pool of people unable to buy properties of their own. John McCartney is Director of Research at Savills, and he joins me now. John, firstly to that point, it had been assumed by many that the part of the problem with rent prices was that landlords were exiting the market en masse, but your research says that that hasn't been the case in the last few years.
Absolutely. I mean, there have been claims that landlords in net terms are fleeing the market. This is misinformation. There is clearly a gross outflow of investors, largely investors that came in during the boom time with large mortgages and got into trouble. But equally, there's an even bigger inflow of investors coming in to replace them, and the reason for that is simple, that rents have risen so strongly and are now at such a level that the yield on residential property investment outstrips virtually any other investment that you can put your money into. So that's why they're coming in.
So supply is rising, so are prices, so we can say this is largely a demand side issue in the market. Well,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, the supply of rental properties has increased in net terms by about 43,000 units in Dublin since Q1 2011. So there's been a very strong increase in the number of properties in the sector. But the surge in demand has been really so strong that this supply hasn't been able to keep up with it. And the reason that people are demanding rented property really goes back to the affordability of housing to buy. House prices are going up. Incomes growth is pretty sluggish. The mortgage lending rules have made it harder for people to borrow money. And of course, some people's household balance sheets are still damaged from the recession. And when you put all of that together, it's causing a tenure shift from home ownership into the private rented sector.
And your figures show that the vacancy rate in Dublin and outside of Dublin as well is at 1.5%. So there's going to be continued upward pressure on prices.
Absolutely. The vacancy rates are now razor thin, both in Dublin and indeed outside Dublin. And we've calculated that the vacancy rate would really need to go up from where it currently is, 1.5%, to about 5.75% before we could expect rents to stabilise, and that's a lot of building ahead of us before that happens.
So the easy question with a difficult answer then, what is the solution to this? Is this purely about building more properties, or is there more to it than that?
I think ultimately that is the solution. I mean, we've seen that in the budget that the Minister brought in a commitment to restore mortgage interest relief to 100% for investors. On the face of it, this looks like a good thing, of course. It's not really, in my view, an appropriate policy, because it's clear from the research that we've published this morning that investors are already coming into the market. The problem is that for them to come in, they have to rob a first-time buyer or an owner-occupier of the housing unit. So there just isn't enough units to go round, and we need to build more.
John McCartney, Director of Research at Savills, thank you very much for that. Ryanair has cut its full year net profit guidance by 5% due to the fall in the value of sterling. Sterling is expected to account for around a quarter of Ryanair's revenues this year, which means its sharp fall in value post-Brexit will have a significant impact on the airline's bottom line. As a result, the company says it now expects to make a profit of between 1.3 billion and 1.35 billion euro in the year. Finally, a look at those currency markets. €1 currently buys you 90 pence sterling and $1 and 10.2 cents.
Thank you very much, Adam. 4 minutes to 8. Pat Clark is standing by at Met Éireann. Good morning.